Barrie, Ontario, Canada. An hour's drive north of Toronto, Barrie is a vibrant commuter town. In 1993, it was so popular that it was one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. It was a model of suburban success. But all of that was about to change. For cabbie Fred Shabcott, it was a night like any other. Just another fair in Barrie's industrial South End. Or so it seemed. Later, a night shift worker spots the cab. He sees someone sitting in the driver's seat. Not giving it a second thought, he returns to his work. As he leaves the next morning, the janitor is surprised to find the cab still there. Curious, he decides to investigate.
Hey, I got kids, man.
A brutal series of murders.
It was probably the most horrific and emotionally charged investigation I've ever been involved with.
An unknown killer stalks a terrorized city.
There was shock and fear in the community. There's people getting slaughtered, and what's going on?
Can police and forensic science stop the killer's rampage before he strikes again? Taxi driver Fred Shabcott is found dead in the backseat of his cab. Barrie City Police, led by Detective Mark Holden, attend the crime scene. Holden immediately knows that the case will be challenging.
Cabs are transient. You have many people in a day, many people over a lifetime of a cab in the both the front and the back of a taxi cab. We weren't sure what we were going to get out of the cab. We weren't sure what could have been transferred by different people, whether it was the killer or whether it were just regular patrons that used the cab.
Where to, buddy?
21 Industrial Street.
Holden is also troubled by the victim himself. Who would want to kill Fred Shabcott?
46-year-old Fred Shabcott was found dead in the back of his deluxe cab behind a Barrie industrial complex. Employees of the cab company where Shabcott worked for 13 years called his death a senseless killing.
Very quiet guy, very honest driver, and we were good friends.
Friends and relatives of Fred Shabcott are sad and angry over his death. Pat Foran, CFTO News, Barrie.
I'll take him downtown. I'll get back to you.
Fred Shabcott was a good citizen. He was a good person. He had been separated from his wife. He had a single child. There's absolutely no reason for us to believe that anybody would want any ill will or to hurt Fred at all.
Because he was a taxi driver, police consider Shabcott a high-risk victim. Any passenger he picked up could have been the killer.
There was absolutely no reason for us to believe that it was family-related or relationship-related, which made it more difficult knowing that the killer was somebody that Fred did not know, somebody that was not necessarily a member of the community that could have been transient through the city.
Forensic experts descend on the car looking for evidence.
Every contact leaves a trace. The basic premise upon which all trace evidence is built goes back to something that was said by Edmond Locard, who was a French physicist in about 1930. He said that the microscopic debris that covers our bodies are the mute witnesses, sure and faithful, of all our actions and all our encounters. He suggested that any time two objects come into contact, there's always a transfer of material between them.
Because the killer was the last person in the cab, their trace evidence will be found on top of any other passengers. It's now up to investigators to retrieve it.
The examination for trace evidence commences normally with a technique called taping. And taping is simply the use of special cellulose adhesive tape to methodically pad down the surface of an item. And the thought is that any adhering hairs and fibers that might be present on an item are transferred to the sticky side of the tape. Those pieces of tape can then be transferred to a clear sheet protector where they can be isolated and protected against contamination.
After being cataloged, the collected material is sent for microscopic analysis. Forensic technicians continue to scour the car's interior. As investigators analyze key pieces of evidence recovered from inside the cab, a picture emerges of what happened to Fred Shapcott on the night of his murder. Bloodstains indicate that Shapcott was attacked in the front seat.
And jeez! Hey, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? You don't have to do this. You don't have to do... Ah! You can have the money.
A shoe print found on the cab's windshield suggests that Shapcott was dragged over the seat into the rear of the cab. Hairs found on the cab's roof liner support the theory. A large stain on the rear floorboard suggests that Fred Shapcott was repeatedly stabbed there and left to die in a pool of his own blood. While investigators now know how Fred Shapcott died, they're still no closer to identifying the killer. Or are they? Earlier on the night of Fred Shapcott's murder, 3 violent offenders escaped from a nearby federal penal institution. The trio hot-wired a truck and set out on a direct route for their hometown. Their path would take them directly through the city of Barrie and leave behind a trail of blood. Police wonder if the brutal murder of Barrie cabbie Fred Shapcott is related to the escape of 3 violent convicts from a nearby correctional facility.
One of the suspects had a conviction for manslaughter in the past as a result of a robbery, and the other 2 had history of robbery and violent offenses.
The 3 men took off from the Beaver Creek Minimum Security Institution in Gravenhurst sometime before midnight last night. It's not the first time violent offenders have walked away from this institution. This latest escape has residents worried again.
There's cons loose, there's people getting slaughtered, and what's going on?
Police say the 3 men may be in a stolen 1980 Chev pickup truck. The truck is white and blue with the license plate number XA2246.
While police search for the 3 suspected killers, the citizens of Barrie grow concerned.
Barrie was a small city. It still had a small town atmosphere here. Initially, there was shock. People were wondering what the heck is going on and wanting to know more from the police.
To reassure the nervous public that they are safe, police vow to track down the convicts. Unfortunately for the town of Barrie, things are about to get much worse. Police are called to a Peel Street residence in a quiet Barrie neighborhood. Ellsworth Beers, his granddaughter, Pamela Constable, and her friend, Scott Seabrook, have missed church. The trio is deeply religious. Not going to church is completely out of character. Searching the house, the officer realizes that something is wrong. Very wrong.
This is Officer 254. Officer 254 requesting backup.
Come in, 254.
We have a possible homicide at 138 Peel Street.
The area was sealed off by officers so we could restrict traffic in and out, and the investigators and forensic identification then re-entered the house and to take photographs, initial photographs of the crime scene.
85-year-old Ellsworth Beers, his granddaughter, 22-year-old Pamela Constable, and 28-year-old Scott Seabrook were found strangled and stabbed in Beers Peel Street home.
Ellsworth Beers and Scott Seabrook have been stabbed repeatedly. Both men have been bound hand and foot. A ligature has been used to strangle Pamela Constable. She too has been bound hand and foot.
Hey, let me put some cards here. All right, everybody.
Police cannot understand why anyone would want to hurt these three people.
Ellsworth Beers, Pamela Constable, and Scott Seabrook were devout Christians. They were very much pillars of the community and forms of strength for their families. They were people with no known or apparent vices, and everyone we interviewed, family, friends, all spoke very, very highly of them. There was nothing to indicate these people were at risk at all.
4 murders within days of one another rocked the small city of Barrie. Citizens wonder if the triple homicide is connected to the murder of Fred Shapcott. They also wonder, when will the killer strike again?
People are getting killed, not just killed, brutally murdered. There was shock and fear in the community. People were locking their doors. People were afraid. It was a small town, and that was just too much killing in too short of a period of time. People were angry. They wanted to know why police weren't giving them more answers, and they wanted more answers.
Police scour the crime scene for those answers. But even veteran forensic investigators are shocked by the brutality of the murders.
When we attended at the scene, it was a very gruesome homicide. And these things do affect the people that attend at them. And obviously, with it being a triple homicide, we have triple the amount of work.
Forensic investigators decide to use Illumilight to search the large and complex crime scene for clues.
It's a non-destructive light source, which enables you to examine for evidence without using powder or without using chemicals.
The Lumilight causes bodily fluids, fingerprints, fibers, and foot impressions that are normally invisible to the eye to fluoresce. Through specially colored lenses, the evidence can then be seen. Around the house, numerous fingerprints are discovered. All belong to the victims, except for one. The fingerprint is dusted and lifted from the surface. Police file the print, believing that it will eventually help to identify the killer. The killer's cold-blooded nature is becoming chillingly clear. He had taken the time to eat some popcorn and watch television. In fact, the killer appears so confident that he has made no attempt to hide what might be the most important clue.
Well, there was an impression left within the blood, a foot impression, that had clearly been wearing a sock.
At some point during his rampage, the killer had walked through his victim's blood wearing only his socks. For police, the footprint is a major break in the case. Now, can they use this clue to stop a madman before he kills again? Within days of one another, 4 brutal murders rock the small community of Barrie. While investigators search for clues to the killer's identity, their top suspects, 3 violent escaped convicts, remain on the loose. As the manhunt continues, an equally intensive forensic investigation is underway. One major clue is the ropes used to bind the Peel Street victims.
The potential for the knots to provide a clue to the killer's identity could indicate that someone has training in boating or in military or something to that effect, something to give us somewhere to go as to identifying who it was.
The ropes are sent to knot expert Robert Chisnell for examination.
My job was simply to look at all the knots, measure the ligatures, and identify all of the knots and see if there was any patterns that might help me. Most knots are the garden variety knots that you find on your shoelaces, the kind of knots that people use to tie up their garbage bags and so forth. Most people will tie these knots out of habit from about the age 5 onward the same way throughout their life.
Examining the knots from the crime scene, Chisnell makes a crucial discovery. He finds that there are 2 distinctly different knots. They are mirror images of one another.
And that suggested to me that certain knots were tied by one person and the other group was possibly tied by a second person.
Chisnell's theory reinforces police suspicions that the 3 escaped convicts are responsible for the murders. At the morgue, autopsies conducted on the Peel Street murder victims reveal several important clues. One wound on Scott Seabrook is of particular interest.
There was one unique wound to the back of his neck, which was a small vertical cut, and it seemed to be on its own, not in relation to the other cuts. It suggested to me a type of a military stab, that it was something to quickly incapacitate someone.
Besides the mysterious knife wound, the autopsy reveals one other important finding.
Pam Constable was found bound and fully clothed, and it was not until the autopsy that evidence of sexual assault was found.
Sperm samples are sent to a forensic laboratory for DNA testing. With the evidence mounting, all police need now is a suspect. And finally, they get the break they've been hoping for.
Police conducted a search of a South London neighborhood last night after receiving a tip. They recaptured 3 inmates from the Beaver Creek Minimum Security Institution in Gravenhurst sometime before midnight last night. Homicide officers are questioning the recaptured inmates.
What's the big deal now? You guys just don't send me back.
Let's just got 3 questions for you.
Within hours, Barrie police are grilling the suspects about their involvement in the murders. They deny having anything to do with the killings.
We stopped at a gas station, we got some gas. I told you, we were just trying to go home. We were just trying to go to London.
They claim to have passed through Barrie before Fred Shapcott's murder, and to have been long gone by the time of the triple homicide.
I don't know nothing about no cab driver. We didn't kill no cabbie. We stole a pickup truck, all right? We stole a pickup truck. We went to a gas station. Story check, Dennis.
Police seized surveillance footage from a gas bar where the convicts claim to have stopped on their way out of Barrie. The footage corroborates their story. With their prime suspects eliminated, investigators find themselves back at square one. But what they don't know is that a new suspect is about to appear. One with an unhealthy interest in knots.
Hey, jeez! Hey, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? You don't have to do this. You don't have to do... Ah! You can have the money.
Police in the small town of Barrie have 4 vicious, unsolved murders on their hands.
We didn't kill nobody. We didn't kill no cabbie.
Their only concrete suspects, 3 escaped convicts, have been alibied.
Story checked out.
With no connection between the victims and only a handful of clues, investigators have little to go on. But then several witnesses come forward.
There was a gentleman called the police shortly after the bodies on Peel Street were found, Eric Ross. Eric said he was walking by the residence around 10 or 10:30 in the evening and could see in a large window and saw what he believed were 3 people inside the residence, 2 of them holding each other. He had given the impression he thought maybe the 2 of them were dancing, but he wasn't sure.
The impression we were left with was that, in fact, it was Pam and Scott who had been holding each other, and a third person who potentially could be our killer in the living room with them as well.
Now, I'd like you to take me back, if you would, to Saturday night.
Realizing that Eric Ross might hold the key to discovering the killer's identity, investigators use a forensic psychologist to conduct a hypnotic interview on him.
The mind works something like a videotape, and that what the hypnotic interview allows them to do is to be able to stop and freeze frame and then perhaps concentrate on one particular area, which would allow further questioning of that area and enhance their memory.
I see 2 people.
During the hypnotic interview, Ross pours through his memories. Clearly, the couple is Pamela Constable and Scott Seabrook. But no matter how hard Ross tries, he can remember nothing about the mysterious third person.
Is there anything else in the room?
A shadow.
Police also conduct a hypnotic interview on the employee who spotted Fred Shapcott's cab.
And then you see something. What do you see?
They hope that buried in the man's memories is the killer's identity.
Can you tell me anything about the car?
But once again, the investigators arrive at a dead end, and the citizens of Barrie want answers.
The taxi.
Well, certainly the community was anxious for us to find the person responsible or persons responsible for these murders. But obviously it's important for us to stay the course and in fact, ensure we have the proper evidence and in fact that we arrest the appropriate person or persons responsible.
But a tip to investigators provides them with more than a clue. It hands them a suspect. A very good suspect.
This suspect had a history with Ellsworth Beers. He had known him through the church that Ellsworth belonged with.
Mr. Beers?
How you doing, young man?
I'm well. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Nice day.
Beautiful day. Is Pam inside?
Yeah, she's in here somewhere.
Good. Good. Can she come out?
Well, I mean, you're here every day.
Yeah, so? What's the problem?
Let me be frank with you. I don't like the way you look at her.
What are you implying?
You might think you're not.
Okay, you know...
But I'm looking at it from a different aspect. She's young, she's vulnerable.
And she's my friend! Oh,
the information we were given is that this suspect had had a verbal confrontation with Ellsworth in the past.
Oh,
get out of here!
Oh, great, yeah, fantastic!
Beat it!
Oh.
So I understand you have a relationship with Mr. Beers.
So you killed him, right?
No, don't lie to us.
Investigators interviewed the suspect, who admits to having had a conflict
How
with
do you know
Beers.
him? I had my problems with Ellsworth, but I'm no murderer.
Come on, kid.
Despite the suspect's claims of innocence, the investigators doubt his story.
We got 3 dead bodies, and you're the only person we can see.
As the investigation proceeded, eventually a search warrant was prepared and executed on his residence and his vehicle. The search warrant on this suspect's residence revealed several items that were of interest to us, including lengths of string that were tied into knots. The ligature we found was of interest to us because the victims, all of them, had some form of ligature attached to their bodies, and so we wanted to see if it was tied by the same person.
The knots are sent to expert Robert Chisnell for comparison. Police also discover a first aid manual. Someone has made a point of highlighting the section on asphyxiation.
Pam Constable was strangled, asphyxiated, and the book being highlighted to that certainly was of interest to us.
Investigators also hope to link the suspect to the bloody sock print.
Several of the items that we seized from this suspect's residence were pairs of shoes, and they were turned over to a forensic podiatrist who then examined the footprint impressions from the inside of the shoes and compared them to the bloody footprints found at the crime scene.
Investigators find one final damning piece of evidence, the suspect's fingerprint. Police compare the suspect's print with the unidentified one found at the Peel Street murders. The two prints are a match. Finally, police have their man. But they're about to discover that having a suspect and arresting him are two very different things.
So I understand you have a relationship with Mr. Beers.
Not really. So you killed him, right?
I had my problems with Ellsworth, but I'm no murderer.
Investigators finally have the man they suspect is the vicious killer of a Barrie cab driver and 3 well-loved city residents.
Neighbor? He's my neighbor.
And not a moment too soon.
It was a strain on the resources of the police department and on the officers themselves. And yes, there's a strain or a pressure that you put on yourself to attempt to solve it because you've got 4 innocent people that have been brutally killed.
I understand he's got a very attractive granddaughter. Maybe you had some sort of relationship with her, or maybe her boyfriend. Maybe you're a little infatuated with her. Is that it? Could that be it? I mean, you know, she's No,
dead.
that couldn't be it.
Why not? Why
Because I didn't do it.
But can investigators prove their case?
You're really a senile maniac. Has anyone ever told you that?
Murder victim Ellsworth Beers and the suspect were known to have had a confrontation. The suspect's fingerprint is discovered inside the victim's home. A forensic podiatrist compares the suspect's footprint to the killer's bloody sock print and concludes that they're a match. Convinced that they have enough for an arrest, investigators are shocked when they consult with prosecutors.
I told the police that I did not believe that we had sufficient evidence to lay charges against the suspect. It was a very difficult situation for the Barrie Police Service at this time. Obviously, the Peel Street incidents had horrified our community. They believed, and I had no reason to disbelieve, that the suspect was in fact the perpetrator. My issue was that I need hard evidence before we charge an individual with a crime, particularly such a heinous crime.
You're apparently senile or crazy or something.
Buddy, watch
Hey, why don't you watch it?
On several occasions, the suspect had been inside the Peel Street residence. In court, it could easily be argued that the fingerprint had been left behind one of those times.
What's up?
The suspect had displayed an interest in knots. Police feel that is more than a coincidence. But knot expert Robert Chisnell isn't convinced.
I was provided some suspect samples, and I analyzed those, identified those, and compared them to the crime scene knots. And there was some similarities, there was some consistency, so it would suggest that one person could have tied them, but also other people could have tied them. It's not like a fingerprint, it's more like blood grouping or blood typing. The tying represented in the case in question might represent 25% of the population.
But how could Martin dispute the fact that the suspect's foot matched the bloody sock print?
There is a data bank which allows scientists to conclude that every DNA sample, and except for twins, of course, and every fingerprint are in fact unique to the population of the world. That type of data bank hadn't been developed yet for forensic podiatry. As a result, there cannot be a conclusion that a footprint is in fact that footprint of an individual person.
Don't lie to us.
Wipe that smirk off your face.
Unable to conclusively link the knots and the bloody footprint to the suspect, police are forced to let him go. But before investigators can act, the case takes a drastic turn. A cab is driving through a quiet Barrie neighborhood. A knife-wielding man has just attacked a boy and his mother. The boy has escaped, but his mother is not as lucky.
I'm scared. 911. It's okay, kid. It's okay. 911.
Within minutes, Barrie police are on the scene.
Stairs clear.
They know that somewhere in the house is the boy's wounded mother. They also know that the killer is in there too.
Police!
Coming face to face with the killer, police get the shock of their lives.
Oh, man!
After a teenage boy and his mother are attacked in their home, Barrie police race to the scene. They know the killer is still in the house.
Schultz? Are you all right, ma'am? Is he still in the home?
Police are stunned to discover the perpetrator is none other than murder witness Eric Ross.
Facing 4 counts of first-degree murder and 2 attempted murder charges is 28-year-old Eric Fitzgerald Ross of Sophia Street, Barrie. Ross is accused of killing 46-year-old Fred Shapcott, who was stabbed to death in the backseat of his taxi on October 2nd, and a triple homicide 2 days later.
Eric Ross came to our attention first as a witness, and we subsequently interviewed him on 8 different occasions. He was never our prime suspect.
Mr. Ross came to Canada when he was quite young. I believe he was 3 or 4. He had grown up with his mother in Simcoe County, spending time in both the Orillia area and the Barrie area.
News of the arrest stuns the community.
Some people thought it was a witch hunt. They couldn't believe that a young man who grew up in Barrie, went to high school here, could possibly be responsible for such horrible crimes. The fact that he was black made people think that somehow he was being picked on. They just couldn't believe that this could happen and wanted to believe that it was somebody from a big city, bad guys from a big city.
Although the public may have doubts, the evidence convinces police they've got their man.
There was one particular wound to the back of the boy's neck, which was again very similar to the vertical wound that Scott Seabrook had suffered. And it seemed to be a very precise, unusual location for a wound. And at that point, I believe that there was no doubt in my mind that Eric Ross was responsible for these murders.
To make sure an innocent man isn't sent to jail, defense attorney John Hill questions the prosecution's case.
A lot of this forensic evidence really made no sense because the question of linking Eric Ross to the scene was very problematic.
Hill notes that the police's not expert claimed 2 people had tied up the victims, yet Eric Ross supposedly acted alone. Hill also points out that the police had several other suspects, including 3 escaped violent offenders,
You're really a senile maniac.
and another that police were prepared to charge. The same suspect whose foot a forensic podiatrist was ready to testify left the bloody sock print at the murder scene. To negate the defense's arguments, investigators turn to forensic science. Police take Ross's footprints and send them to a second forensic podiatrist who finds that Ross's foot could also have left the sock print.
We have a witness, Eric, that saw you with the light on in the cab.
But the most damning evidence comes from Eric Ross himself during a grueling 24-hour interview.
Look at you, Eric. You're all covered in blood. Look at you. You're a goddamn junkie.
Police discover Ross is a heroin and cocaine addict. The desperate need for money to feed his habit motivated the murders.
Stabbed him, didn't you, Eric?
With horrifying indifference, Ross describes the killing of Fred Shapcott.
You stabbed him in the front seat, right?
Yeah.
Pulled him in the back seat, right?
Yeah.
And then finished him there, right? You finished him in the back?
Yeah, I did.
Stabbed him again, and again, and
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
What'd you
40
get?
lousy bucks.
$40.
You wouldn't listen to me.
Father with kids, you killed him for $40, Eric.
Shapcott had driven Ross to the rear of a business that Ross had once worked at, a place Ross thought would be deserted. Desperate for money, Ross searches the cab.
During that period of time, our witness was making his rounds and observed that taxi cab with the light on sitting at the back of that commercial business. And we believe it was at that time that Eric Ross was in the cab.
Just tell us. Just help us out.
Ross is then questioned about the Peel Street murders.
You're not getting away with this.
He was stupid. He didn't listen to me.
Who was stupid, Eric? Who?
Seabrook, man, whatever.
So you killed him. You stabbed him?
Well, he didn't listen.
Eric Ross had been at a party on Grove Street. He left that party, he'd been smoking crack cocaine. He left that party. He walked to get some more drugs from his supplier. While en route, he passed 138 Peel Street. As he was passing, Pamela Constable and Scott Seabrook were standing near the carport of the residence.
Beautiful night, eh? How you doing? Good night. Sorry about that. Disturbing you too. Lovebirds. Come find King Street. Where I can go?
I think it's down.
No. It's down here.
Hey,
what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Are you kidding?
No, just relax. Move, relax.
Move.
Just give him your wallet.
Okay? Open the door. Open the door.
Hurt her.
Just leave her alone.
Just relax, okay?
Take anything you want. Get off, Barrie! Shut up! Where's the money? Where's the money? Just leave her alone. We'll do anything you want. Just leave her alone. Get out of there. Listen, time out. Just leave her alone. Okay. Shut up.
I got it.
Now get onto his feet. Onto his feet. What are you doing this? Shut up. You hear me? Kill her.
Ross makes Constable tie up Seabrook.
Shut up.
But the bindings are not tight enough, so Eric Ross reties them himself, creating the illusion that there are 2 killers. He then forces Constable into her room. He ties her up as well.
Get off me!
this?
Shut up!
What do you want?
He left Pam and went to where Scott Seabrook was.
Stop it! Will you get out of it? What you want? Oh my God! What are you doing to him? Just Scott! He's.
But the commotion has disturbed Ellsworth Beers.
Pam, what's going on in there? Who's that?
That's my grandfather. Please don't hurt him.
Everything's okay. Are you okay?
Everything's fine. Go back to bed.
She was subsequently sexually assaulted and then murdered. After the murder of Pam Constable, Eric Ross sat at the top of the stairs for a few minutes and indicated that he couldn't let the old man live, and he then proceeded to enter the bedroom.
There have been many cases where people who have subsequently been found innocent of charges have, for one reason or another, made false confessions. So just the very fact of the confession wasn't a roadblock to providing him with a defense.
You killed him, didn't you? Didn't you?
Yeah. Hill argues that because of Ross's drug state, he was susceptible to police questioning and simply told them what they wanted to hear.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you stabbed him
Yeah,
again
I
and
did.
again and
Yes.
again, right?
Yeah.
After the preliminary hearing was concluded and right up to the eve of trial, we were pretty confident that the Crown could not make out a case beyond reasonable doubt showing that Eric was the culprit. And then, disaster. On the eve of trial, we were served with further disclosure that Eric's DNA had been found in the undergarments of Pam inside the house. So that was the H-bomb going off in terms of the theory of our defense.
Eric Ross stands trial.
It was like we reporters and the police and even the jury were watching some sort of real-time horror movie. Sometimes we would walk out of court after hearing a day of evidence in silence, and the toughest of crime investigators as well as the reporters all took it pretty hard sometimes. The Crown Attorney himself once wept in the hallway. This was tough stuff to listen to.
Eric Ross is found guilty of the first-degree murder of Pam Constable, Scott Seabrook, and Ellsworth Beers. He is found guilty of the second-degree murder of Fred Shapcott and attempted murder of the teenage boy and his mother. For the city of Barrie, things would never be the same.
The murder of 4 people over a weekend, 4 innocent people over a weekend, had a profound effect on the city and its citizens. If there's such a thing for a city to have a loss of innocence, that was it.
The horrible part about this case is not that they died. The horror is what they went through before they died. 4 people are dead, but what they had to endure, those moments before they died, justice can never be done. He had no problem killing. It didn't bother him. He could sit down and eat a bowl of potato chips or popcorn after he killed, with blood on his hands. This man would have killed again.
Eric Ross was the first person in Canada convicted under its dangerous offender legislation. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole.